Have you ever wondered why lasting change can feel so difficult? Perhaps you've read the books, listened to the podcast, written down your goals, and promised yourself that this time would be different. For a while, it is. But eventually, you find yourself thinking the same thoughts, reacting the same way, and returning to familiar patterns. If you've experienced that, you're not alone. Most people try to change their lives by changing what they do. But lasting transformation doesn't begin with behavior. It begins with identity. The way you see yourself quietly shapes the way you think, the choices you make, the opportunities you notice, and ultimately, the life you experience. That is the foundation of everything we teach here at Be Renewed Collective. In this video, I'd like to introduce you to the Be Renewed method, a simple but profound framework for creating lasting change from the inside out. Welcome to Be Renewed Collective. This channel exists for one purpose: to help you renew the way you see yourself so your outer life naturally begins reflecting your inner transformation. Our work isn't about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering who you've been beneath fear, limitation, old assumptions, and inherited beliefs. Over time, I've come to notice something. People often believe their circumstances are shaping their identity. But more often than not, it's their identity that is quietly shaping their circumstances. The Be Renewed method was created to help reverse that process. Rather than reacting to life as it appears, you learn to begin with the unseen, to intentionally cultivate the inner reality from which your outer life naturally grows. This method consists of 4 parts: awareness, renewal, alignment, and embodiment. Each one built upon the previous, creating a process that feels both practical and deeply transformative. Let's begin with the first. Every change begins with seeing. Not seeing the world differently, seeing yourself differently. Most of us move through life without realizing how many thoughts have become automatic. We develop quiet assumptions about ourselves. I'm always behind. I'm not confident. I've never been good with money. People don't really notice me. I always struggle. These statements often become so familiar that we stop questioning them. They begin to feel like facts, but they are not facts. They are interpretation we've repeated often enough to believe. Awareness is the practice of becoming conscious of those inner narratives. It's learning to observe your thoughts without immediately agreeing with them. It's noticing your emotional patterns, the situations that keep repeating, the stories you tell yourself, the expectations you quietly carry into each day. Imagine walking through a house you've lived in for years. One day, someone points out that every room has been painted gray. You had stopped noticing because it had become normal. Awareness is like turning the lights on. Nothing has changed yet, but now you can finally see what has been there all along. Without awareness, transformation remains impossible because we cannot intentionally change what we refuse to acknowledge. Once you've recognized the identity you've been living from, a question naturally follows. Who do I actually want to become? Renewal is not pretending. It isn't positive thinking. And it certainly isn't denying your current reality. Instead, renewal is the intentional decision to stop defining yourself by your past experiences and begin defining yourself by the person you choose to become. Every meaningful change begins internally before it becomes visible externally. Think about learning a new language. Before you become fluent, there comes a moment when you begin seeing yourself as someone who speaks that language. That internal shift changes how you practice, how consistently you study, what you expect from yourself. Identity always influences behavior. Renewal asks you to create a new internal agreement. Instead of saying, I am anxious, perhaps the deeper truth becomes, I am learning to live from peace. And instead of, I am always struggling, you begin agreeing with, I am becoming someone who creates wisely and lives intentionally. Notice the difference. You are not forcing yourself to believe something disconnected from reality. You are choosing the direction of your identity. You are giving your inner life somewhere new to grow. Renewal is where possibility begins. This is where many people unknowingly lose momentum. They've become aware. They've chosen a renewed identity, but their daily life continues following old habits. Alignment is the bridge between what you've accepted within and how you live each day. Imagine planting a seed. You wouldn't expect it to flourish if you watered every other plant except the one you intended to grow. In the same way, our daily choices either reinforce our renewed identity or our old one. Alignment asks gentle but powerful questions. If I truly believed this new identity, how would I speak to myself? How would I spend my morning? What would I stop tolerating? What decisions would become easier? How would I respond differently when life becomes uncertain? These aren't dramatic changes. Most are surprisingly ordinary. Speaking more kindly to yourself, keeping promises you've made to yourself, choosing rest without guilt, learning instead of assuming failure, practicing gratitude instead of constant comparison. Alignment isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Every small decision becomes another vote for the person you are becoming. Little by little, the gap between your inner identity and your daily life begins to close. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The things that once required conscious effort begin to feel natural. You no longer have to remind yourself who you are becoming. You simply live from it. This is embodiment. It is the quiet moment when your renewed identity stops feeling unfamiliar. You no longer perform confidence. You become confident. You no longer practice peace. Peace becomes your default posture. You no longer try to think differently. You naturally think from your renewed identity. Embodiment doesn't arrive overnight. It develops through repetition, through patience, through living in agreement with who you've accepted yourself to be. Think about riding a bicycle. At first, every moment feels intentional. Eventually, balance becomes effortless. The same is true of identity. The person you repeatedly agree with eventually becomes the person you naturally express. That's why lasting transformation isn't built on willpower. It's built on becoming. When we step back, we can see the beauty of the entire process. Awareness helps you recognize the identity you've been living from. Renewal allows you to consciously choose a different one. Alignment brings your everyday life into agreement with that renewed identity. Embodiment transforms that identity into your natural way of living. None of these stages stand alone. Each one supports the next. Without awareness, renewal lacks direction. Without renewal, alignment has no foundation. Without alignment, embodiment never develops. Together, they create a way of living that feels both intentional and deeply peaceful. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with a simple reflection. Rather than asking yourself what you want your life to become, ask yourself, who have I been agreeing that I am? What thoughts have I accepted without questioning? Which identity am I reinforcing every single day? And perhaps the most important question of all, who would I become if I began living from a renewed understanding of myself today? And there is no need to rush these questions. Simply become aware. Awareness is often the first sign that transformation has already begun. Thank you for spending this time with me. This video serves as the foundation for everything we'll explore together here on Be Renewed Collective. In future lessons, we'll take each part of the Be Renewed method and explore it in greater depth. We'll learn how to recognize limiting beliefs, renew our inner dialogue, bring our daily lives into alignment, and naturally embody the person we've chosen to become. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to continue exploring. You'll find thoughtful articles, practical resources, our newsletter, and opportunities for private consultation through Be Renewed Collective. Until next time, remember this: your life doesn't begin with what you see, it begins with the person you quietly agree that you are becoming.